Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LJLOU podcast, season 2, episode 25, gentlemen. Of course, I am your wonderful, as always, and glamorous as ever, co-host with the most, MaskedSwan, otherwise known as Alex. That's my thing, or Lexi, depending on your persuasion. It doesn't matter really to me. Of course, I'm joined by, as always, the man in the middle, Initia1ise. Hello, sir.
Hello. Glad to see that
right
two of us have, been around, actually doing the podcast on a regular basis.
Screw you.
Putting in the effort, putting in the grind. We've got our background set up and everything. And who's this guy? What is he doing out there in the sunlit skies? What is this?
So, Nymaera, is that you in the horizon?
It is.
That?
I've been traveling to distant shores, covering a great many things in a very gone on my gap year in a gap week. I've been all over the place, but I was missing the sweet pastures of home, the sweet gameplay of the LJL. So I'm back. I'm maybe better than ever. That is yet to be decided, and it's really good to be back on the podcast with you guys.
We've missed you. We've missed you.
We
try. Well, I'm. Well, yeah, our brothers' conflict. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in that. Though I did cosplay that anime once upon a time. So
interesting.
Weird times. Cosplay is obviously something that might be on the cards if we get another year out of this. Something that me and Sam actually realized when we did the quick math on the podcast. Yeah, we're pretty much a lock to get there if we do another year of this. So. Yeah, we'll have to figure out where that will be. But Nymaera, how have you been? It's been a while. Fill the people in.
So, obviously I was there in week 1. I did some casts in week 2 as well.
You were our main producer.
Yeah, exactly. In week 1, I was there for all 8 games. Then week 2, I came in for a couple, but then I was kind of like But since then, of course, I've been doing UEM, University Tournament, been subbing in for UKLC and NLC as well, doing some UKL, and like alongside. So I've finally got all of my uni work done for the year, which has been an absolute ordeal as well.
Well done.
So I'm not gonna lie, like the last month or 2 has been pretty fucking hard. Actually, it's been a lot of work, not that very much time, and I've definitely been noticing, particularly in the last week when I was, the last weekend when no games were on, I was sat there, I'm like. Obviously, I was doing my own UEM cast. So I'm sat there like, gosh, most of my casting has been around the LJL when I've been a caster, and I've been missing being on broadcast with both you two. Actually, I'm not. I think we've had like 1 or 2 games where we've had all 3 of us on. I'm actually. Have we had that this split yet?
Nope. Yeah. We've not.
So I mean, sorry to get like all sappy and emotional and stuff, but like it's actually we had a chat yesterday. We had a meeting about the LJL, having a chat about how do we think the split's been going on with the graphical direction, everything else like that. And I think we all 3 of us sat there like we just kind of want to get us 3 back together on screen at some point. We've been missing that, and I've been
the crew back together.
Yeah, I did actually go on holiday the other week because I sorely needed it, and had been on holiday for like 2 years at that point. And that was nice. That was a nice break, but. It's really good to be back here. I went to Brighton. Got myself a little bit of a tan. I'm slightly less pale than I was. And
we pale gentlemen, we get a very light one, or we burn.
That's the one. But no, it's really good to be back. Of course, we've got Super Week coming up, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I've been watching all my highlights, even though I didn't get to cast anything in week 3. So I'm pretty clued up, and I think I'm ready to jump into it.
Obviously, you had your say, and we gave you probably the most amount of opinion when it came to doing our last week's tier list, controversial as ever as they are. And we, of course, will, ladies and gentlemen, revisit it at the end of summer because, hey, that's a whole, 20-30-minute video. That's content for all the people that want to appear knowledgeable at Worlds when all they've done is they've watched our tier list. So, yeah, we'll do that. Initia1ise. So, how's your week been? How have you been doing? Inform the people of your projects.
Pretty nice. Another emergency sub in at NLC, which was really good fun. Got to cast all the games with Jamada, which was really great. Enjoyed doing that.
I'm loving the pairing.
It's been a lot of fun. Jamada's great.
You two are actually pretty good together.
Mainly, Jamada's super chill. He's got a really sort of dry, understated sense of humor. I am slightly less understated on cast. Which makes for
almost like I beat that into him.
Well, exactly. Which makes for some some fun combos. I really enjoyed doing that, and it was a good week to be involved in. Sort of the sort of like second to last week, penultimate week, which was really cool. Got to go back home over the weekend as well, which is really nice. I had a barbecue with some extended family as well, which was really nice. Yeah, had a really good time. Managed to hang outside and social distance before all those laws came crashing down yesterday. So yeah, I mean, been really good stuff. The only problem was coming back home, where I was on a train for far too long because there was some overhead line issues. So I was just stuck on a slightly sweaty train for much longer than I was anticipating.
Worst thing when we're getting some of the actual vague heat wave of the British summer, which is 2 weeks of actual sunlight, and everyone complains, and then we all go, I wish we had that back again. It was lovely, wasn't it?
I've got hay fever. Less good for me.
I can appreciate those problems. I have the exact same problems as well.
So, like, in the winter, I feel sad, I feel mopey, I hate the crap weather. In the summer, I die because my sinuses and eyes stop functioning. Like, I've got, like, about a quarter of the year between, like, the different transitionary periods where I can actually function as a human being.
Autumn is always good for us. Autumn is normally okay. But we'll have to wait and see.
Great hoodie weather.
I'm coming back to you, Nymaera.
Yes.
Coming back to you, sir. Jesus, I hit that was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Sir, YouTube people on audio and stuff, what would I like them to do?
So, I don't have a printer, and I can see Melvin is on chat. So what you can do, your first thing you can do is you can like, and then the second thing you can do, because I've got my personal printer here, and the second thing you can do is this thing, which is a longer word to write out. You can comment. Yes, you could do that one too. Yeah, and the last one you can do is you can do this one. You can subscribe. That's what that says. You can subscribe. Oh, that's what I had for my viewers for the stream the other day. That's the one. You can like, you can comment, you subscribe. If you see us on any of the podcasty kind of things as well, you can just give us a good rating. Of course, we are doing this off our own backs. It has been for the last 2 years now, and it's been great, but like sometimes we need that little bit of love back to us to know that we're going on the right path. Thank you so much for the support you've given us so far, but anything you can do to support us goes a long way.
Lexi,
including selling your soul.
Can we get Melvin as all back? I prefer the printer.
No.
we could maybe.
Don't put me back in UKL. I want to be here.
No. We're not sending you back there. No. We've gotten you. We've finally got you back. We're not about to get rid of you again. No.
I mean, okay, I've been outvoted. That's really sad. Okay, moving on.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, mate. This is just how a democracy works. Welcome to capitalism. It's the worst thing in the world, according to some people. If you are a lovely person out there, and you decide to comment, we will give you a shout out. But obviously it has to be complimentary. Or you can flame us, as long as you're not a bot.
Yeah, don't be
That's
a
all
bot.
I care about.
Yeah. Don't be a bot.
Bad bot. Yeah. We might even... I'm very tempted. Maybe we should get a segment where every time we just have a pre-recorded segment and we just bring in Melvin and transition in him and then transition it back out. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we will. We'll figure that out. Gentlemen, this week's podcast episode, as Nymaera already alluded to, is going to be the Super Week Primer episode. This is always a fun one because we always get a week off in between. So we did our first ever tier list, which, I mean, I think the man that got on the thumbnail, he enjoyed it. Hoglet seemed to like it.
Oh yeah. My days, he had a lot of fun with that.
So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running down all of our teams, our expectations and primers for Super Week. Some of the narratives as well that we're going to be obviously relaying on broadcast, either ourselves or casters. But it's also time to set those narratives up because, hey, some of these teams are doing pretty good. Some of these teams are doing pretty bad. I'm going to first come over to you, though, Nymaera. It's going to be super important to do this, obviously, because... me and Initia1ise, we've already talked about week 4 to kind of ad nauseum. Yeah. So what are your hot takes and thoughts about week 4's players and just teams in general?
Right. So I think what we saw. So just before we went live, I was going through all of the different highlight videos again because again, it's not quite the same as actually sitting there casting it. Because like there are ways which I take in information, and I learn things, and by doing something and actually like having a lot of different actions in terms of like the mental stimulation while I'm covering it means I remember it more. And I didn't have that for this one, so I went through all of these different highlights. And I think the really big thing is I think that Honey is setting themselves up to be a successor to Utapon in this league. When we looked at the Axis Rascal Jester game, you could have turned off nameplates there and looked at that Jinx game, and I would have been fooled that it was, you know, peak Utapon, and Utapon is still playing at his peak, let's be honest. I think Honey is actually starting to creep up there in terms of my, like, MVP potential for this split. That was the big takeaway for me. I don't think that's much of a hot take, definitely, because, you know, we've been praising them a lot.
He's been doing very good, yeah.
Yeah, and besides that, I mean, I could focus on a couple of players, a couple of teams, I guess. I know you guys have talked about it a lot, so, I mean, I don't want to, like, overrun too much of what you've been doing.
Well, I would like to hear some of your thoughts.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think that, we're starting to see a couple of teams shifting their approach to the meta. DFM particularly, again, we've got a shout out to our cash cow at the LJL, the ones which give us the views and the comments and the souls to sell.
Yes.
What we've seen from DFM is that they have gone right the way back to being
Good.
comfort champions with early game pressure. They were playing Set Renekton, Shaco LeBlanc, which is one of the strongest mid-jungle 2v2s in the damn game right now, and bot lanes which can get priority too. I think that DFM, they did not have a good meta read in the first couple of weeks, and even in week 3 I was sat there and like, this team is really laboring over these wins. The Burning Core game, I was sat there, I'm like, oh my god, can you please end it? I think that we're starting to see now DFM getting into a real comfort zone. And for me, the only way they really recover this split in terms of my expectations for them is if they go undefeated from this point and get the largest win streak the LJL has seen in this current iteration. So remember, I think we ended off with an 8-game win streak. I think it's the highest we've gotten throughout any of the splits. We saw that from DFM in spring, V3 in summer, and that was broken off. So if they end up getting over an 8-game win streak and they get it to 10 or whatever, I think at that point I'm like, okay, DFM we'll forgive them for the bad meta read in the first couple of weeks, but given that we've got a patch change coming up in the next one, you cannot mess up that meta read. I'm tired of seeing LJL teams being slow to adapt to the meta. But DFM right now seems to have found a comfort zone in strong mid-jungle 2v2, early pressure across the map, just blitz you with that kind of pressure, and come into really strong objective fights. So that was one big takeaway from them. Obviously, we've got some strugglers too. Burning Core and Sengoku, I don't really want to spend much time on them, but we're starting to see that actually the LJL does have strength and depth throughout rosters too. Actually, you know, Rascal Jesters contested, beaten by Axis. The Axis Rascal Jester game was so fun,
yeah, it was a great
ridiculously good. And like I said, I think Honey really stood out, but Nemo is also coming up as, you know, this homegrown talent alongside the people like Reiner as well, and putting their name in the hat for, you know, up there to be best regional kind of talents. And let us not forget about CGA too. Like, I'm looking at Kassin and Nathan, and I'm sitting there thinking, good champion pulls, knowing how to play the meta. I love the Anivia pick. No, people should be playing this pick more. And I think that they are suddenly a team which I'm going to have my eyes on. So, obviously, this is kind of like the starting points of, like, you see yourself on the graph, and you've got, like, this one point of data, and you're trying to figure out which way the arrow is pointing in terms of trajectory, and it seems like quite a couple of them starting to move the needle upwards. So that's what I'm saying from that. The question is, though, Super Week is a very, very hard week to contend with, so that's going to be interesting to see where we're actually heading from this point, because we've set down those lines saying, we like what we've seen here. Was that a flash in the pan? Is this something which is going better from here?
Yeah, and Super Week is that kind of crazy thing, because it is 4 games in just over 2 days. It is a lot of games, and honestly, the important thing to reinforce here is we are past the halfway point. There is no turning back. There is no extra round robin or anything to come through here. This is it, and we already are well aware of how some of these teams are going. The bottom 2 teams have only beaten each other when we come into Super Week. Sengoku beat Burning Core. Burning Core haven't beat a single one of these teams that they played. And the only team that Burning Core had beaten was Crest Gaming Act, who they got destroyed by in week 4. Yeah. So there is, like, no chance for these 2 teams. And that's actually where I'd love to take this conversation first, gentlemen, is Burning Core and Sengoku. Now, we talked about this yesterday briefly. And this is going to be an important one. Who who was gonna? I think this was actually. Apologize to you, Initialize. I think this is back to Nymaera again because I
That's
think
okay,
you're.
fine.
I mean, I can talk about this as well happily if you need me
Sure.
to.
Yeah. Well, let's just open the floor. Then
It's
if you
only
wanna talk
because
about
I
it.
know that you're doing a certain video
Of course.
around these
Oh,
two
yeah,
teams,
true.
so I feel like
So-
it makes sense for you to open this
Well,
for us.
So Sam, obviously, like you've been hyping up Burning Core, and like, well, you were like at the start of the
My
year, and in
copium
fairness,
has
actually,
run dry.
yeah, you know, like in
somewhat.
fairness, we were all thinking that Burning Core could be a third place team. They could be pushing up towards the higher tiers of the table.
Yeah.
So, so Chimo, a lovely kind of coordinator in the background, who's been so
Shout out.
good to work with this split there. So really, thank you, Chimo. Like, he was asking, all right, for Super Week, let's get some real hype videos in. Of course, we've been doing that for Game of the Week, but for Super Week, we want to make a big effort, get multiple games, and have a lot of these things coming in. And they said, all right, just put your name down next to a game, and you know, we'll get things sorted. And then I saw Sengoku Burning Core, and I'm like, I'm having it. I'm having it. Because I thought, okay, it's not your DFM V3 or your DFM Rascal Jesters or your Axes versus V3 or all these other kind of games which are kind of coming around in about the pot. But just because something isn't at the top of the table doesn't mean it can't be important. Miracle runs can start from these positions, and much like some of my favorite series of all time have been in promotion relegations. I mean, Sam, of course, you're a big fan of was it the NIP? What was the game of the Alex Ich, the one which he had the Oriana hyper carry in that series, the 5-game series for the.
Oh, it would have been
is
NIP
it
versus Unicorns of Love when Unicorns
Is
of
that
Love
it?
were looking to get into the EU LCS at that time. So the drama, of course, is at the time like Alex Ich had been the top laner and Power of Evil had been the mid laner for NIP at that point, and they
Oh,
switched
yeah, I
out.
forgot about
Power
that.
of Evil joined Unicorns of Love to say it was Alex Ich versus Power of Evil in a fantastic series. I mean, like what 2015, 16 maybe actually.
2015, 16. 16,
Gambit,
maybe.
whenever Alex left and joined NIP, so it would have been like 15
It might have been 15
summer, I
actually.
think.
Yeah. Anyway, so like a lot of the emotions which come into, so it's not necessarily about looking towards the top of the tree and kind of turning your gaze heavenwards and trying to see how far you can climb that ladder to the stars. This is in the dirt. This is right in the trench of the LJL right now. Like the knives are out. There's going to be a lot of bloody noses after this game because the winner of this has a chance. Like they have to make up 3 games on the Hawks, which is difficult. But,
Yeah,
like,
both Sengoku and Burning Core are 1 and 7 at the moment, and I mean, both of them also play other teams before they get to this match. Like, it is fucking brutal for both of them. They need to win their matches before they get to here. Sengoku have Axis.
yeah.
Burning Core have Detonation Focus Me.
Which means that this game is so juxtaposed because I actually wonder if we see both these teams all leaning on this and just saying, this is where the line is, right? This is if we lose this, like, there's no hope. So that's why I thought, actually, you know what? The storylines heading into this, particularly Sengoku, finalists in spring, upper bracket in summer, even though they crashed out and got third, and that of last year, and in spring, both of these teams had high aspirations. This is if these teams don't make it to playoffs, like fucking hell, like that's bad for the orgs. That's you got to feel bad at that point because you know Sengoku last year, the whole story was they put together a roster which was meant to take over the league, and it didn't. Now to fall from grace that heavily, this game could have a lot of implications. This is the kind of game which makes or breaks an org's history in a lot of ways. Like
I
if
mean-
they lose this game, there's a chance that we never see these rosters again.
No, yeah.
There's a
I
chance.
mean, with the results that we're getting, not necessarily a bad thing,
Yeah,
technically,
true.
especially now as that LJL is getting Academy. Like, theoretically, in
We're
a
gonna
year
have
or
big changes
two,
after the split.
the talent's going to just slowly start improving. Theoretically.
hope.
Theoretically.
Gotta hope,
yeah.
So, going to be interesting to see how that goes.
Even
Initially,
the bottom of the table is really interesting. That's what I'm trying to go for.
absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. And let's actually talk about that. Initialize, the other matches, as I've already pre-mentioned, obviously, they've got to face Axis or Detonation Focusing before they actually get important matchup between themselves. But they've also got, for Sengoku, they've got Rascal Jesters and V3 on the Sunday. For Burning Core, they've got the Hawks
Bring
and
up the standings,
Axis.
actually, you can see it there. So bring it up on the stream. You can see it on the far right side there, guys.
Perfect.
Lovely.
What are your thoughts for this? Like, what needs to happen for one of these teams to even hope for a chance? Because I'm far more pessimistic personally.
I mean, for Burning Core or Sengoku, we're speaking specifically here.
Why not? Yeah,
I
from
mean,
their
like, the thing-
perspective.
I mean, like, the thing is, they are. I mean, if we're looking at this, they're not actually that far off playoffs. The thing is, it's kind of out of their hands in some regards. And they're both like, the sixth place spot. SoftBank Hawks are at 4-4. That's 3 games ahead of where they are. So if they get, 3 out of 4 this weekend, they could potentially tie there. If they win every game, they tie the second place teams, assuming they don't pick up too many wins, and there's still a week to play after that. Like, it is still doable, but it's a miracle run. Like, there's no other way of putting it around it. And like, these matches are hard.
Oh yeah, I think at this point, if one of these teams were to make it out at this point, that is on par with what Axis did in spring 2020, which we counted as our Cinderella miracle run, right? I mean, each team has 6 games left. The Hawks have looked actually really solid in the last week. I think that it is almost unreasonable to assume that the Hawks will not win any of their last. It's incredibly unreasonable for me to think that the Hawks would lose all of their last remaining games.
Well, they're against Burning Core, remember? So I mean,
yeah, exactly.
They get to stand in the way.
Which means that realistically, you're looking to make up 4 games on that team. 4 out of 6 when you have to play DFM, when you have to play these other teams.
It's hard.
That is the real sheer cliff face you got to climb up.
Yeah, like it's scary matchups.
Gentlemen, outside of Nymaera, who obviously is excited to do the mirror match between these 2 teams, what are the percentages that you would be willing to stick in the ground and say, I think one of these teams can make it out? Coming to you first, Initialize. What kind of rate would you be giving one of these 2 teams? You can have both these teams' percentage if you want to try and take the over, the under, or whatever.
So, I think with the fact we've actually had a week off, where we've had a big meta shift, where Super Week historically
11.14
broken teams as much as it has made them.
Yeah.
And there are certain teams that are on a bit of a downward trajectory here, even. That I think maybe, considering that Sengoku can do a very good early game, there's a 20% chance of them making playoffs.
Wow, that's huge. Okay.
I'd say something like maybe like 10, 15 for Burning Core. But that's basically under the assumption that I'm expecting certain teams to go down after the break as well as up. And that chaos with certain teams. And there is talent on these rosters.
I'm sure we'll get into those teams soon.
To push for at least a tiebreaker, right? Like that's still doable. I think it's hard, but one of these teams making a push for 6th place, it's doable. Especially if one of these other teams has a really bad couple weeks.
But the other thing is that the Hawks have a 2-0 head-to-head versus Sengoku.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this.
That's a fair shout. Actually.
Yeah. So for me,
the rating. Fair.
For me, it's like between 3 and 5%. Like.
Yeah.
I actually just 0. I don't see a world where either of these 2 teams make it out. I actually think we've already got our 6th playoff. What we're playing for now is Juggernaut match. I would be hugely surprised if one of these 2 teams can make it. Just because there is more of a gap between our bottom 2 teams and the Hawks than there is between Hawks and Rascal Jester. Yeah. Like,
it's a bit nuts. The playoff scrum is a bit nuts right now.
Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, I am actually stealing a line from Initialize of yesterday evening, because he actually said that verbatim, and I'm just stealing it. So I'm just giving him the credit.
Thank you.
But stealing it.
Fine.
Okay, so Initialize is a bit more hopeful, which I think if we stick to our normal podcasting personas, this kind of leans into everything. I think everything's on fire, and Initialize is a bit more hopeful. So hey.
My point is, I expect there to be fire in the Super Week, and I'm expecting 1 or 2 teams to end up getting burnt down. And it's not like the league is that stratified right now. Like, you go back to spring, you go back to summer, we had teams that were up at like 7, 8 wins right now.
Yeah.
And we don't have that, actually. The first place team isn't actually all that secure where they are. The fact that teams are so close in playoffs basically means I think there's going to be teams that are dropping games that maybe you wouldn't expect them to, and that means that there is still a world for someone to come and snipe.
Yeah, coming into week 4 in spring, we had DFM at 7-1. They lost to Sengoku in that fairly crazy game where they just kind of got blasted through bot. And they drafted very, very poorly. In spring and summer, both, I think we had 8-0 from from both DFM in spring and then V3 in summer. So we're used to kind of having this like huge fish in the early, huge fish in the pond in the early weeks, and then slowly.
Well, we're used to by week 4, we already have a team locked for playoffs. Yeah. We don't have that technically, even though they're soft locked for it, they just don't have their placement.
Technically, actually no, and I'm no. So Rascal Jester and Axes, are they technically locked, or do they have a 2-0 head-to-head? No, they don't.
I think Rascal Jester are soft locked. I think
Rascal Jesters, I believe. I
think one win gets them soft. I think one win gets them actually in.
Yeah, no, okay, so no one's hard locked yet, but like, yes, effectively. So yeah, I think actually, Lexi, you bring up a really good point, and that's not something which that's not something I considered actually. So actually, the thing which you're saying in terms of we basically have our 6 playoff teams now. I think that changes the mentality hugely, right? We are waiting on miracles for the playoff teams to change, and yes, we know that there is a huge difference between upper bracket and lower bracket, right? Mm-hmm. If you get into that juggernaut match, I mean, we saw how much that totaled CGA in 2020 summer, right? CGA went down to the lower bracket, and like I reckon if CGA had that extra life in 2020 summer, maybe strange things happened. We knew they were a very coin flippy team, but like having the extra life meant that obviously could work in their favor. So now we're looking at actually, is it just about solidifying place in playoffs, and is it also just about because now actually you have a couple of games in hand, you can start trying with the new patch, trying to cultivate a style which will actually take you to higher heights. Because there's obviously a learning curve, curve, and you sometimes need that stage time to actually just throw something into the fire and see if it doesn't burn. Like when V3 had their first playoffs match versus the Hawks, actually, in last split, I was looking at that and thinking, so Cog had 3 different Narg counters prepared. They had the Tristana top, they had Urgot, I think there was another thing which they didn't bring out as well. I'm trying to remember what they said in interviews. And that's the kind of thing you need to put it on stage. And now that you actually do have games in hand, you can do that with a lot less pressure. Mm-hmm. So now I guess, like, obviously, we're directing the conversation in certain ways and stuff, but looking into the future teams and stuff like that as we get to them, I'd love for us to visit how does this benefit the teams which no longer have that pressure on them to, like, play the style which has got them to this point and this amount of wins? Can they now benefit from having that lesser pressure?
I mean, I might disagree on the pressure because there is such room for movement within the playoff bracket still. Like, there are 4 teams tied at 5-3 right now. 4. Rascal Jester are a game ahead of that scrum. Hawks are a game behind that scrum. Like, that is, no one is secure in that playoffs. But in fact, as honest, people haven't locked playoffs yet either, even if it is an outside chance that Burning Core and Sengoku gaming come out there. And, outside chance, 10%, whatever you want to give it, especially considering there's some 0-2s there that I'll call that, particularly versus the Hawks, which is a big one for Sengoku. Yes, you're in playoffs, that's great to secure, but, so many of these teams are still kind of looking at this and going, what are the teams around me? Very similar scores here. Maybe I'm not as secure as I'd like to right now. So I don't know whether I agree with that narrative, actually.
Yeah, multiple ways you can look at it. Just worth thinking about the mentality.
Sure, absolutely.
I do like Melvin's comment on Sengoku will win exactly 1 less game needed to reignite my copium addiction.
What's going to happen is, because obviously, like I said, they have the O2 head-to-head versus the Hawks, so they're going to draw level with them in the Burning Core.
Oh, no!
Burning Core are going to sit there, 1 game below them, and like the Hawks is like, if only we could have done what Sengoku could have done.
This is good, because this is the first time we don't actually get a fucking tiebreaker match. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with no 4 in the morning.
How many one-to-ones do we have in the...
While you find that, I just want to kind of give some people some historic context, because I think we brought up that point of teams that have looked a bit bad, and then like by the end of it, they actually looked really well. First example for people out there, back in the LJL 2020 spring split, V3 Esports were 3-5 in week 4. In Super Week, they actually ended up being 6-6, so they actually got a 4-1 record. 3-1 record. was very rewarding. Obviously, they ended up not just missing out against Sengoku Gaming, who was able to go 1-1. Even with a 2-0, they needed Sengoku Gaming not to get there, so they didn't get into the Juggernaut match. But
Yeah.
then they were able to make it all the way into that third place spot and looked very good doing so. You want another team that did something like that? Detonation Focus Me. Week 4 of the LJL 2020 summer split.
Yes.
They were tied. They were 4th place with 4-4. They went 0-2 in the first day of Super Week, then went 1-1 in Super Week, brought it back with a 2-0, and then we all know how that works. They ran up through the gauntlet, and only V3 really could stand in their way at the end of that. So trust me, ladies and gentlemen out there, we have seen this before. There can be fireworks going, and while I'm being a bit more like, oh, I don't think it will happen, Initia1ise is damn right to call it out, because there's absolutely a bullshit chance can happen like that.
I refuse to count the LJL as done before Super Week, because it's never done before Super Week. It has never been done before Super Week. Like, there is always something that goes horribly, I don't want to call it wrong, but horribly different. Things change big time in there, so...
It's where my, the phrase, put a pin in that came from Rascal Jester, because I remember recapping it and going, oh my god, Super Week just, like, flips the script and makes it all. But that is Burning Core and Sengoku Gaming. I think we've given all the hope and dreams around their context and our thoughts on that. And, gentlemen, kind of takes us on to a very easy one. And we've already started talking about them a little bit. The Hawks. Are the Hawks safe? And if they are safe, how safe are they? Are they like they should make playoffs? Are they, let's look forward and try and hit Juggernaut? Like, where are the power levels of them Initia1ise?
Okay, so I think Al called out a really important point, which is that they have the 2-0 over Sengoku. That is such a big deal. Like, again, it was already going to be a little bit of a miracle run for one of these 1-7 teams to try and push up to playoffs. But having the head-to-head versus one of them lowers that chance again by, like, another 50% or whatever the chance was there. That is a massive deal, especially considering probably, I think...
well, actually, when we see the Sunday game, the Sunday game for the Hawks and Burning Core, we'll actually know the head-to-head at the end of Super Week.
So that is a big deal. Who are the Hawks playing? Let's have a look. They've got CGA, they've got Rascal Jess, that's a rough one. They've got V3, considering the form on there, maybe that's doable. They've got Burning Core, so, coin flip versus CGA, who have been up and down. We've got V3, who's came out of week 4 looking a little bit dicey. Burning Core have been struggling, That's 2, maybe 3 guaranteed wins. Well, not 3 guarantees, but 3 matches you can certainly play for. And then Rascal Jesters as well, Actually, people have been able to take it to them over the last couple of weeks as well,
Well, so this is like, in terms of head-to-heads and stuff. So I was just basically looking at what would have to happen for us to get like a lot, like tiebreakers and stuff like that. Because of course we've seen a lot of teams.
No, I don't want tiebreakers.
We already have within the scrum. We have DFM V3 at 1-1 and Axis Rascal Jester at 1-1. Everyone else in that group, of course, can win and lose against each other. But like, we're almost certainly going to see.
There's going to be at least 1 or 2
3 or 4,
matches.
3 or 4 1-to-1s, and given how everyone's been fluctuating, I think it's almost guaranteed we get tiebreakers. I've just got that feeling. I've got that feeling we're going to get tiebreakers. So having the head-to-head for the Hawks, that's pretty important. Actually, so in terms of the Hawks, so they have let's have a look. See, so they have so they need to win against Axis to get a head-to-head. CGA, they'd have to win against. DFM, they'd have to win against. Rascal Jester, they need to win against. V3, they have the 1-0 over.
So they
everyone
got that in
else,
week 4. They had that last week when they beat V3. That's when Dash.
And this is the really big thing.
Lysandra and stuff.
Because it's that one data point and trying to like see where the needle's pointing. Everyone else in playoffs they can punch up against, but put it this way, if they end up winning and taking the 1-1, because they're a game behind, it'll draw level. So if they win anything during the Super Week against these big teams in the playoffs right now, things are going to get damn tight.
Yeah.
Like, really tight.
Hawks are the guys that can play Blue Shell most heavily here. Or one of them particularly. Because, yes, they're in 6th, but they are literally one game behind 2nd. They beat V3 in week 4, just before this break, handily. Tussle on the Volley Bear destroyed people with Corporal on the Rakan as well. They had a great time. Dash, who was on the Lysandra, Ace had a bit of a rough time on the LeBlanc, not being able to get as much done in the team fights as he would like, and all of this kind of stuff, if we are starting to see some of these quite coin flip playmaking aggressive players like Tussle and Corporal, who, Tussle we said we were kind of saying was had a really bad spring, but Volley Bear last week was pretty superb. With Corporal as well, maybe he's been a little bit like aggressive in the place, but if that's working out and you come into this week and you say, okay, we take that win versus V3, and suddenly you've got a head-to-head there, things get quite interesting. So I think Hawks could despite being at the bottom of this pack, are going to be one of the more impactful ones to watch purely because of how they can like really push big teams down the table.
So because obviously I wasn't on the last couple of episodes, I really want to get both your guys' opinions. I mean, Lexi, you slammed Hawks for the early weeks, right? They just doubled their wins in this week. They got 2-0. Is there anything you think has fundamentally changed? And has your opinion changed on them much? Is this it's a lucky week?
No, I honestly don't really think I'm like, they had some good games. That's great. We play a best of one format, which I've already given my opinions on. And I'm like, a few good games where Corporal gets to absolutely smurf on Rakan. Again, let's just put it out there. V3 on a rough week. They had a rough week, just full stop. And they definitely, personally, looked a bit tilted again after the DFM game. Just my opinion. You can take it or leave it. They also then slapped Sengoku. I think everyone on our predictions and everyone in our community got that one correct.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, Hawks did what they had to do. They looked good doing it, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm still so worried because I've given my heart to the Hawks before, and they have not treated it brilliantly. So I'm excited to see it. But if Hawks go 1-3, I'm not going to be too surprised.
Yeah, I agree.
That's me.
I kind of agree. I'll say they look. I'll say some of the members I had more worries about, particularly Tussle, looked more shored up and more together with Corporal particularly. And people were kind of following up on the aggressive moves, which before they'd kind of been left out to dry. The vision game seriously stepped up. Like, that was always one of the things which both me and Lexi...
Corporal has the best vision score in the whole LJL now.
Tussle's vision score as well is seriously trying to... He's like third or something in the league right now. Like, Steel's way up at the top because Shaco boxes
fucking zombie ward junglers.
Exactly, zombie ward junglers. Exactly, all of that kind of stuff. So that kind of inflates things a little bit. But, in fact, I'll go double check now. But I believe,
lads, we know the power we've got now, right? Like, if we just bitch and complain, apparently teams listen to us. Like, I mean, we are just the most powerful.
Tussle was just behind Hatchametra and Hoglet, basically, in terms of the vision. So that's much improved.
But like actual force in that.
Yeah, compared to like being dead last, like by a serious margin. All of that stuff is good news. Dasher,
he was in spring.
And then also like Zenit as well has seriously stepped up in terms of a lot of the stat work, in terms of making things happen in team fights. Still not convinced he's like necessarily the best AD carry in the league, but like actually the resources he's getting...
last week was good,
exactly.
Actually.
And then the resources he's getting, he is converting a bit more, which is like, that's good news, right? Like actually, if you're converting on those resources, like even if you're not the best, as long as you are saying, yeah, he's already had good laning stats, that's not been a problem. But if you're now getting more out of the teamwork or out of the team fight phases as well, that means there's someone to back up Dash, who was kind of going it alone a little bit as the sole carry. So like those are encouraging signs. My question then becomes, okay, so you're better. Are you good enough to be pushing really high up the table rather than being kind of like, oh my god, are you kind of like just out of playoffs?
I want to see more than just a Gnar ×2, a Volley Bear ×2, and a Rakan ×2.
That's exactly what we said about V3 in summer of 2020. Last year when I was sat there, they went like 4-0 or some shit. I'm like, you have just played Thresh Rakan and Galio mid. No, not Thresh Rakan, like Thresh Aphelios and the Galio mid. Yeah. And like, you gotta show me more. And in fairness, they did, and they ended up being really good. But like, we can give our own predictions, and we've got a pretty good... We have a pretty good feel for the league now, because, we've been involved with it for so long. I mean, for me, the really big takeaway from the Hawks, this is probably my last point on them, is that their comp versus V3, was Uber Exodia. LeBlanc can't play this game. And we saw exactly what happens when the LJL has always been a LeBlanc region. Whenever a LeBlanc is remotely viable, we've played it. And the fact that the Hawks can just go, we have an answer to that, we're ready for that already, gives me a lot of hope for them in this next patch coming into it too, because they had a really good read on it. Because it's like LeBlanc jumped in and just every fight they died, and Ace had a really horrid time. But even though their team fighting has normally been very stellar up to this point, so for them to like take a player's strong point and just crush it in their hands, just crumple it into the dirt, really impressive for me. So for me, that's the bit I'm going to take forward and say, do that again, and I'll have hope in you.
Righty then. Now this is the part where it's going to be freaking difficult. Now, gentlemen, all right, I'm going to ask nicely. Don't talk about the jesters too much in this part, okay? Try not to. I'm going to probably bring them up as well. So I'm just saying that out loud.
The warning has been put down.
Instead of talking about them, we're just going to have carnival music in the background.
Yeah, I'm going to paint my nose red.
Welcome to the pack of second place, ladies and gentlemen. We've got V3 Esports, Detonation Focus Me, Crest Gaming Act, and Axis. Now, I'm going to put a bit of context out there in case you haven't been following the league. V3 Esports 0-2, if you didn't know, they didn't have a great week. Detonation Focus Me, however, 5-win streak. They're looking really good. Guess what? Yes, they went 0-3 and then won 5 in a row, and they played a bunch of Shaco, and now LPL players are copying them. Like, actually, apparently, it's whatever. Crest Gaming Act looked really good last week. So we'll have to see. One of those games were versus a bottom team. Shrug your shoulders of which one it was. The other one was versus Axis. Good for them. And that was a good game. Axis went 1-1 last week. They lost to Crest Gaming Act, but then they beat Rascal Jesters. Okay. What are we gonna say about the pack, gentlemen? Because this is the pack. Who wants to take this first?
Okay, the first point I'll make, and I know I've talked about a lot of things, I'm literally just going to make one quick point and just go back to DFM V3 have a head-to-head of 1-on-1. Axis Rascal Jesters have a 1-on-1. That's the one thing I'll say there. Sam, go.
Yeah, those are big ones.
That's huge.
The other thing I would point out at this point as well,
Getting
teams are tied
tiebreaker.
at this point. There is also something to say for what has the week-by-week cumulative stats been. Because if V3 started at 2-0, gone to 3-1, went to 5-1, then to 5-3, had a really bad last week. You look at DFM on the other side, started 0-2, went to 1-3, had a 1-on-1 week, and then I've gone 2-0 towards the end of it. And like Axis as well, you know, started 0-2, then 1-1, then 4-2, then 5-3. Like, some of these teams are kind of on an upward trajectory. Some of them have started strong and then kind of suffered down. I think CGA are the most inconsistent. We've got 1-1 until that last week where they went 2-0. And, you know, their losses have been really bad. Their wins have been pretty good. You know, like we can think back to the Z game versus Burning Core.
Some of their wins have been very good. Some of their wins have been a bit
that Z game was awful.
He's had a
Don't
moment,
remind me.
He's come back.
Oh, no.
That was great.
I actually think Zed's a good pick right now as well. I think you can definitely just not like that.
Yeah.
Not into like full. Okay, no, I'm gonna stop.
What that basically
don't go full tilt poker, mate.
Before the break, you could see certain teams were on a very much an upward trajectory. DFM, Axis, CGA was being very coin flipping, you know, and that makes them a kind of okay. They're in the middle of the pack, fair enough. And V3 started strong and kind of have started like just dropping off a little bit. As honestly, not to talk about them too much, we've been asked not to, kind of a Rascal Jesters who were looking kind of unbeatable towards the beginning of the split, and then games got a bit closer and they've dropped a couple. That makes that break very interesting in my mind, because if teams come out of that and then go, okay, we were starting to lose it a little bit, let's reset, get the momentum back, that's really good. But for other teams who are on a really on a momentum, really on the upsurge, that can stall it too. And the question is actually, in some ways, that big break, that change in meta, the patch change in particular, I know, Al, you reckon it's going to be relatively big in terms of what can be strong.
Akali and Nocturne are suddenly no longer effective.
Viego's kind of dropped a little bit as well, all that kind of deal. No, there are some big changes in there, like Shaco, for example, for DFM as well, probably slightly less.
The Stride Breaker changes have really hit Nocturne and Shaco.
Yeah, could really, exactly. So like that Shaco LeBlanc combo that DFM were using to really dangerous effect, maybe not so good. And like, what it means is actually, we saw like, okay, you got these head-to-heads, we've seen like the trajectories, but like that kind of fire break makes it potentially quite difficult to work out what happens next, because it's not necessarily the same. Like the momentum changes here can be pretty big, is what I'm getting at.
So, let me give you my headlines. If I had to do like a very brief synopsis of each of them. All right, so V3 Sports, right? You read the paper. What does it say?
Caught on photographing in another player's jungle.
Actually, it's not far from that, really, honestly speaking. V3 Esports, the sky is falling. We changed our colors and nothing works anymore. I don't know. They started off great. I completely agree with Initia1ise. There is something to be said when you start off doing pretty bad and then you actually figure out it and you actually start looking on form. Access DFM. V3 Esports had the opposite, and this was not a week where I honestly, if they had gone 1-1, don't mind. I actually don't mind. If they beat the Hawks or they beat DFM and they lose the other one, I kind of go, nothing to be worried about. A 1-1 week, whatever. They've been looking good otherwise. Yeah, this was pretty suspect, and the way that they lost, I'm concerned about. Detonation focused me. They're probably going to win this whole split.
Yeah,
we've just been
that way again.
I'm sorry. I'm just kind of like, if they're able, like me and Initia1ise in the last episode, Nymaera. I'm not sure if you listened to much of it, but basically I I get very frustrated because I'm just like, DFM are just doing bullshit stuff because they can. They are just so much better, and they already have figured out how much better they are. They're like, hey, if we just keep playing this Shaco shit, like, then no one is going to know what the fuck to do against us when we actually start playing meta again. It's like, oh god, I'm so worried about the rest of the region.
Like, meta stuff is like, okay, well, you can take the Shaco out of the weird pit, but you're still thinking, well, you've still got Aria's LeBlanc, which is still, like, really good, it turns out. And it's still got to think about adding that. It's like,
you still have Steel's Champion Ocean, right?
Like, I don't worry too much about DFM, like, getting, like, oh, no, we can't play these champions, unless something like, suddenly Fiora is meta, and you're asking
they did this with Siros, Heimerdinger, and Karma.
The player for DFM I have my eyes on, because I have to going into international events, is Steel, because we've seen they're very practiced picks, and in MSI that was the Udo, and coming into now it's the Shaco right now. I need to see what their top end champion pool like, because we know they play loads of stuff. It's just what can they play at the very top end and perform, and the team plays around too, because
that's hurt them before.
It has really hurt them before, and going into international, we cannot afford to have a jungler which only has 2 champions which they can win on. Like, even if they're, like, okay on the others, we've seen how important junglers being very impactful on the map has been in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So that's my real worry, because I'm, like we had on the tier list, I think that Ebby, I think that Aria, I think that Utapon have been absolutely stellar. Gang is slowly starting to wake up too. That's a big thing. Question is, can Steel match the pace with that, particularly if Shaco's out? I don't know whether the Stridebreaker bursts have just made him just unplayable at this point, because we saw what he was doing in the last couple of games, right? Just queuing into the team, Stridebreaking for a 3-man 90% slow, walks away, job done.
Yeah, like I have got the Ziggs that were supposed to be safe. It's not safe anymore.
Exactly. The backline access from the jungle was really important for them.
I'm genuinely not worried about what Steel can play. Like, I've seen him play everything from Nidalee to tanks. Like, he know, like, that's not my issue. Is not whether he has the mechanics to do stuff.
Wait. Are you not worried for regional play, or are you not worried for international play?
International play, he's shown up on this stuff before. That's not a problem.
Has he looked good on it though?
Yeah, well, I think that's a bit of a I disagree with that take. What I will say,
I'm asking a question.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's going to be just fine in terms of mechanics. That's not what I'm worried about, like, at all. What I will say though is that so if you look back to summer of 2020 in particular, what we saw is it was a little bit of the Yankos syndrome, which was like, okay, teams got to learn to play through Steel rather than Steel play through them, which kind of like, you could kind of get away with it with Nidalee because you can effectively use it to just dive top with the Renekton, and you're still kind of playing through the lane even if it's a carry jungler. It's still like that's not quite the same as like playing a Graves where you're playing for this person to get as much sort of like XP and farm through the jungle and jungle advantages. And my issue then basically becomes actually, okay, so if basically it turns out that you're having to change how you play through your jungler or vice versa. DFM have proven a little slow to adapt on that one before. In terms of playstyle, not mechanics. And I don't think that Steel's going to be a liability on that.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was talking about when I was kind of like rounding up week 4. Is like DFM have gone back to playing early game mid jungle TV2, having having a pressure jungler that can play around the strongest solo lanes the LGL has ever seen, right? Ebby and Arya are still incredibly good, and I thought towards the start of the split when we're seeing Arya playing more stuff like the Lulu, Ebby playing more stuff like the Gragas again, I thought that particularly one of the games which they lost was just a complete misread on the meta. The one versus Rascal Jester, when they had like a Lulu with like the Ezreal, and that was the Ezreal was the only damage. It was just really, really bad. But I think that DFM, as you were saying, Sam, I think it's good for them in the long run if they can just start playing through their lanes. I think that's what we saw G2 when they were struggling in season 9 Worlds, I guess. Was they stopped playing the farming junglers like the Graves, and they were just like, fuck it, we're going to go play Volibear. Or was that was season 10, rather. Yeah, and that's just what they decided to do, and it worked out really well for them, because Jankos was always a player that loved playing through his lanes, unless he was on the Olaf or something like that. That was like the one exception. I think that DFM have the star power in their lanes, which they should focus on. I think that's what they need to solidify their style as. And so, I mean, I know we've talked about DFM a lot, and there are other teams in there too. So the question is, of course, can the other teams kind of catch them napping at this point? And is that enough to then force them into lower bracket at that point? Is it enough to get them into that round? Is that enough? Because I still think if DFM make playoffs, they're still probably going to be a force. Probably still going to win the split, like we were saying. So the question is, what do the other teams do for us to feel confident about them? What do we do?
Well, in answer to your question there, what do they do? Well, actually, V3 showed us the blueprint. You get a better jungler. You just have the strictly just better player in mechanics, in just read, in just playability. Boogie was that player. Didn't we initialize? Didn't we put a jungler over Steel in our tier list?
Yeah, potentially.
We haven't talked about that team yet. Funny that. Hoglet. Axis.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone's going to be a Kingslayer at this point, honestly, I would give it more to Axis than any other team at this point, outside of CGA flipping coins and Kassin getting heads a bunch of times, and I'm just like, well, they did it. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, like, again, I'll add in, I stand strongly against the Steel being, you actually being able to be, like, purely outclass the guy. I think that's...
He was... Hey... No, he was in 2020 summer. He was in 2020 summer, though.
Come the playoffs, that wasn't so true. And again, but for me, that is a playstyle thing. On a Boogie! Yeah, and even then, he probably had some problems in the playoffs.
Like, Boogie ran him over!
Not in the finals, he didn't.
He did! No,
he didn't.
Did we watch some different finals? Okay, anyway. Well, very good. Anyway,
I remember that went to five games. It was a really good series, but it was a little bit more than
that. It was a banger.
Yes. Point being that Hoglet has been for the side of Axis. Very interesting player, and he's been a real catalyst for this team, kind of coming out swinging. It also helps that obviously Honey has been a god, and I'm sure we'll talk about him properly later. But actually, Hoglet has been a large part of the kind of, how do I put this? The person leading the charge, for better or for worse. He's died the most of any jungler on average in the league, but like he's done a lot of that kind of thing. But he's also got a lot of kills. He's got a lot of assists. He's got a lot of gold. And effectively, that kind of ability to just go in on things like the Diana has been really, really key to getting Axis the kind of scrappiness they've sometimes needed to pull out when things are looking a bit rough. And behind it all, while all of that chaos is happening, is Honey on things like Jinx, looking oh so happy. He has been a monster, particularly on the Vigilante coming out of Piltover. The Jinx from that guy has been just absurd.
100% win rate. Doesn't lose on her.
Like
doesn't lose. What's your impressions on Axis, Nymaera?
Like I said, I mean, I saw the game versus Rascal Jester, and so actually I know we're not going to talk about Rascal Jester, but I think this win was like very interesting to see that Rascal Jester would like actually just out team fought. Like, Axis out team fought Rascal Jester. How crazy is that? No, we didn't see that when we saw that DFM and V3 lost in their dominant runs. It was kind of almost like just kind of disrespectful drafts and stuff like that. It wasn't the gameplay, which is an issue, is another thing. So I don't actually know if it's more important if that they lost in a team fighting game. And Axis, like, it were really close team fights, and Honey on the Jinx was absurdly good. Like I said, turned the nameplates off, and then I was like, yeah, you could have convinced me that was Youthbon. And I know we might have a question about that later on. I did have a sneak peek, but Axis look like they are very, very comfortable heading into 5v5s now. I think that when they lost to CGA, I thought that was mainly just, again, kind of getting a bit outdrafted, because like I said, that Anivia pick from Nation was just disastrous for Axis. Like, and the Lee Sin kicks and the Anivia showed me that actually CJ had a really good draft for that one. I think Axis have shown us what their upper cap is now, and it is quite high. Is it enough for me to see them taking a best of 5 versus one of these teams?
We don't know, because we don't know what they look like in a best of 5 series, because this is a bunch of rookies.
We've only seen one best of 5 from Axis as an organization. That was spring 2020, and they lost 3-1 to...
Oh, no, 0-3. It was 0-3,
0-3 to V3.
Yeah.
V3 stomped them. Yeah, I was trying to remember if it was a CGA one, but no, that was the CGA versus the Hawks in the summer.
That was a fun match, actually.
Which was really fun. That was really good. Yeah. Aria had a fun time with that one. But I think that my problem with Axis is that they've never managed to string together a run of form as an organization ever. Like, ever, really. Not long enough for them to achieve anything. They're starting to make one now. And they have more wins in a split than they have ever had as an organization. And that's cause for praise. And it looks like they're going to be into playoffs at this point. I think that's
it's
pretty fair to say.
It's very hard for them to drop out.
Yeah.
It's doable, but it would be...
So the question is, because I think for this team more than the others, they need the momentum. They need the momentum more than any of these teams, because they are such a streaky team. And I think that they're on a hot streak. The last week I said I think their gameplay was really, really good. They have to keep it going in Super Week, though. They have to keep it going. I think if they go 2-2 in Super Week, I don't know how I'm going to see their postseason at that point.
I will do a call out to Axis management. Please do not get rid of any of these players in between the split.
They need development.
Please keep them on, even if... I want to see them as the main roster. This has been their year. This has been their feeling things out and getting things together. Run this roster back if you can. I understand Hogler or Honey might be now getting better deals. But, I mean, trust me, there are some core parts here. Like, we've seen Namo pop off. We've seen Megamin pop off. We've seen Inno pop off. Like, these individual players just need to keep being nurtured, and they could be some phenomenal homegrown talent. Hopeful for Axis. I'd love them to be a Kingslayer, but I completely agree. They need momentum. And a team that just never has momentum is Crest Gaming Act, gentlemen. Our final part on the one-on-one. Look at me. God, the one-on-one team. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on Crest Gaming Act? Last week, they beat Burning Core. They beat Axis. They finally got a 2-0, but one of them is against Burning Core. So, but the game against Axis was a really good one by them. We've already mentioned that obviously the draft was just a huge factor in this matchup with that Anivia. I mean, coming into this, it's like, Crest Gaming Act, do we think they can actually go far? Do we think they'll make it out? Will they? Well, I'm not going to go into it. Actually, I'm not going to say my next question, but because that's the next section. But like, Crest Gaming Act.
Not in the best of 5.
No, I think that's the problem, right? It's the best of 5 scenario where, like, don't get me wrong, I think Nap and Nation are really consistently solid. Like, they both really, really are. Nation, particularly on some of the AD high lane priority mids, like the Lucian was obviously he was really famous for. He can do a lot of work with. Nap's Gwen has been an absolute terror, and we know what he can do on weak side on things like the Renekton or the Ornn. You know, like, these guys are really, really good. They're both team fight monsters. They put up wonderful stats. The problem is actually like Cassin's very mercurial. He's very young, and we've seen a little bit of like old school Crash light, and obviously Crash is in the league, and we're seeing kind of very much the other side of Crash from where he was really good in Spring.
Crash and the boys.
The Crash end of that one band with Crash and the boys. To finish up the Scott Pilgrim reference, but Cassin's in a similar vein where like loves to get involved, loves to brawl, for better or unfortunately quite often for worse. I think he might actually be the most deaths per game in the league on average for a jungler, just ahead of Hoglets, 4.4 versus 4.1. But at the same time, like, he's got the second highest kill participation of any jungler. He's got some really good like damage percentage numbers as well. He's like third in the league for that. Like, the point being, this guy is the tip of the spear for the squad, and that is good news when you've got these solid solo laners who can come and follow you up, but it also means that the team lives or dies by how the jungler kind of does in the early game, and versus the kind of veteran talent and the fact that jungling is at least 50% a team sport in terms of how things go, particularly for your first and second clears.
I like how that assumes that jungling is a different sport to League of Legends.
It is. Compared to like laning, it's a very different game, right? In a lot of ways, it kind of is. Particularly when it comes to the pro level.
No, I've been abusing Jungle Diana, and I think the game's pretty free of real estate at the moment
that's
for the
because you might be
junglers.
playing a very strong champion right now.
And funnily enough, laning with Diana as your jungler is also a very different game, because you realize you don't have a jungler until level 6.
Yeah, like, there's going to be level 6 and you might get something. What's Proto Belt's complete? Rocket Belt, sorry, still gets
That's the one.
But my point being, like, I think the problem is CG are going to get to playoffs, and they might be able to do okay at the first kind of best of 5. I think the problem is the further through you get, the more that Cassin is going to get pushed, and the more that the bot lane, which is already kind of a little bit sort of like dicey in lane, gets pushed, and I think that hurts him over a best of 5, where there is a kind of there's probably a better term than this: stubbornness, endurance required to be a jungler in a best of 5, about being able to adapt on the fly from people really trying to screw you over, which will happen more in best 5 than anywhere else, and I think that hurts CGA the further into the split we get, particularly once best of series start.
And that means, gentlemen, we have run through our bottom 2. We've done our question mark team that is like at the pretty much a soft lock, but we don't know. It's super weak. Anything can happen, as Initia1ise said. And then we've got our the pack, where it's just a pack of 4. You can go to your local Tesco's and get your pack of 4. You get your Axis, you get your Crest Gaming Axe. Sometimes you get your DFM, but normally it's a Sengoku. That's the oh god. Let's get the clown music out. Krusty the Clown is somewhere around here. Hey kids, it's Rascal Jesters. 1-1 week, they lost to Axis, and it was a
great game.
Maybe the best game that I've ever seen from the LJL. It's up there. It's like top 5 games. It was so good.
Maybe. Oh, you know what might have been the best one? Remember the DFM Sengoku finals and the one where Sengoku won? Like in the 3-1 loss in the finals with like Seros on his ear with his magnificent teleports.
It was good, yeah.
Tyrion doing similar things on the other side of it. That was a pretty good game, like, thinking about it. Game 5 in the summer finals to V3 DFM. That was really good.
So good because of Lilia.
As well, I want to say. Was it Burning Core V3? Was it that one? One of the playoffs one from spring, possibly, or where it was like an absolute...
That was V3 CJ, and then there was CJ Rascal Jesters in the spring.
They were both amazing series. There's been a few.
I mean, DFM versus Burning Core, the one series where Burning Core literally gave me a heart attack.
Yeah. Oh, the game 4 and 5.
It was great.
Really it was so good. It's so compelling.
So what we've learned from this is, on a complete tangent, LJL actually has really good games.
Occasionally.
Consistently.
I'd say so.
But the Jesters, gentlemen, the clown music is well and truly out because we've already been on 2 tangents already. Where do we sit with them? They lost to Axis, obviously, but they picked up the W regardless over on the other side. I actually can't remember who it was off the top of my head. I think it was like a Burning Core or something off the top of my head.
It was... Who did they beat? They beat Burning Core, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, close in the early game, actually. Once on that Kindred was getting a bit scary for a moment until Zoe Varus happened.
Their early game was fine, and then they were a bit aimless in the mid game. Didn't know what to do with their waves. Approached objectives very haphazardly against heavy poke, and they lost.
Yep.
That's about it. So Rascal Jester's stuff again. Like I said, just harking back to the point which I made before. Even though we weren't talking about them then, I'd really like to expand on it now because I want to get your guys' opinions on this. When we saw our dominant teams lose in spring and summer of 2020, and actually again in spring again from DFM, it was outdraft or a bad meta read in some ways, and actually even in the losses, you could see them team fighting very well. You could see them kind of being the better individual players, but with worse tools to do the job. That was my read on the games which our top table teams have been before. What makes this really interesting for me is Axis just outmuscled Rascal Jester. Like, they were against the Lysandrum. They were with their own LeBlanc, right? They had a Jinx which was in a very precarious position, did Axis, against the Rascal Jesters, and yet Honey team fought like an absolute freaking god, and Nemo's hooks obviously changed the game, landing stuff onto Varus mid team fight, whatever. Is it more important that Rascal Jesters actually got outplayed for the loss, rather than kind of being their own defeat? How much is that an important factor to you guys?
I think it probably is, and I'm looking back even to week 3 in their game versus the Hawks, which was another titanic 42-minute game that was very, very close. That one they came out ahead of. I think it's great for Axis to prove that, as I said, like one of the things that they have been quite good at is playing for super late and trusting in Honey to be to finish up the work that Hoglet starts in the early and mid games. And the meta has kind of facilitated that as well, with Nemo being a very good thresh on top of that. But
let me juxtapose this then for Rascal Jester, because you're talking about Axis. I mean, we've already kind of talked about Axis on that front, but like, obviously you said that about trusting in Honey. I mean, you talked about the Hawks game in week 3. The other game in week 3 went even longer, right? There was the 43 minute one, and then there was the 44.5 minute one, which they lost, even with Sol being on the Callisto and being, very, very fed. Do Rascal Jesters have a carry they can rely on in the late game? Do you guys think that or not?
That's kind of the question I've been asking, because I was looking at week 3 and I went, that was 2 very close, very long games. Yes, there were wonderful team fight stuff going on, but like the mid games were not clean. The early games weren't all that clean, and you go to week 4 and it's kind of a similar situation. And I think they probably do. I still think Sol is exceptionally good. Don't get me wrong, but I have to say a lot of the sort of frontlining, particularly I think Hatch, Initia1ise and Kinatu on that front, and have been outplayed in some of these late game fights, and I think that's been a little bit concerning in some ways. Like, yes, they're first place, but it feels like everybody and their mother's giving them a challenge in that second place squad right now, at least when it comes to sort of those mid to late game team fights, and Jesters have not been clean in there either.
Sol's been fucking great though.
I have a different take, because of course I do. Of course I do.
That's why we got you on here, Lexi. Wheel you out for the difficult conversations.
Rascal Jester versus Crest Gaming Act. Rascal Jester fucking inted the draft, in my opinion. I actually think they fully inted the draft. The fact that they played that Callisto, and the fact that they didn't put any fucking early game huge pressure and not repeatedly ganking that bot lane. I'm sorry, I have no sympathy. They deserve to lose if they're going to play like that. And you know what? Well played to Crest Gaming Act, because they absolutely deserve that one. Nation had a damn killer of a game on that Karma. He was like... You know when you lose to a Karma, but you don't know why you lost to a Karma. It's just that presence where you're just like, fuck Karma. Milan had like maybe his standout game so far of the summer split so far, so I'm not going to take that away from him. He well and truly deserves it. And by the way, Nap diff. Like, I'm sorry, I love my boy Kanatu, but Nap absolutely diffed him.
He had a massive game. Yeah,
it wasn't
especially
close.
After the early game. Like, he started 0-2. It was rough.
What was really interesting is, like, remember, this is a game where Rascal Jester were 8.6k ahead.
They shouldn't lose this. If they lose that,
they shouldn't win that. They should, yeah.
So it's completely, in my eyes, Rascal Jester's fault. Part of that is just how they played the game. Part of that is what they did before they got into that game. Week 4's a fair bit different, though, where I stand by. Amazingly, they couldn't team fight to save their life, and Axis seemed to be the best team fighting team
They look
in.
good.
Like at least they're like one of the better team fighting team.
the late game
Top 2, top
particularly.
3. Oh yeah, God, their late game team fighting is just absurd, and maybe that's all they've practiced over and over again, and they're just like, get honey, like 4 items, 5
ironically,
items, 6 6. He had
like-
6 items in this game.
But they got out team fought partly due. I mean, team fighting as a Kennen versus a Initia1ise is awful. But like when Axis played against CGA, they lost in the team fights. Part of it's draft, but they also got outplayed a bit too. Cassin had a stormer of a game. Like, so I think what's really interesting is we don't have a team which will just win in team fights now. Like, most of our victorious squads have just won in team fights, one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll also say that, you know, this is like the 2 big games they've lost at these kind of post 40-minute ones have been when honestly the other team has had better scaling. Like, Callista was always going to get outscaled by, I can't remember who was on the other side back in week 3, but you know, this
Varus.
game, Varus.
Of course you're going to get outscaled.
Just in terms of the range there, it's a big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Actually, when it comes to team fight.
Q.
And you've got a Karma as well there, and that's always going to scale very well for
No, but it's
backing that character.
Karma Olaf does not. I know it scales better than Olaf on his own, but like
I mean,
that does
not outscale a Jin Zhao Oriana.
But you've got Gwen on the top side as well, who absolutely does.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, and the Varus range, there's like I think there is probably a bit of a scaling, at least when it comes to the hyper late game, when these guys get to just like poke you and then go in with a Gwen who's going to be scary.
I think it's playable. I don't think it's unplayable.
It's unplayable, exactly, and probably why it got so late. But the point is, like, it's still like I still give the edge over one side. And this game here as well, where Rascal Jester did lose to Axis, you know, it's a Mundo who is just the most obscene tank in the late game, alongside a Jinx with a Thresh, and you've
assuming players are brain dead enough to actually attack the Mundo first and not forget about the Mundo, which because
well, I mean that's kind of the Mundo dilemma, is actually like you need to fight past him, not through him, because if you're fighting through him, he does a lot of damage. But on the other side, actually, you know, like it's Varus, Lysandre, Jin Zhao, and Anar with the Carmen on the bottom. That's a big mid-game team, right? And this went to 40 minutes plus. Like, there is, again, like, you hit this point where, like, the scaling differential kicks in again.
I'm looking for that mid-game.
What do your alphas... Lexi, what do your alphas see?
Late game. Rascal
taking the Hogwarts to Isengard.
Late game.
They're taking the Hogwarts to Isengard. God. We need to do that now. We need to do that.
We actually have to do that.
Oh my god.
Now. Oh god, we have to do that now. We've got to put only faces of LJL players on it.
The next podcast thumbnail.
Okay. Apologies, Initia1ise. We went off into a wild tangent there.
Middle Earth.
Rascal Jesters, though. Coming back to you, Initia1ise. And I'm going to actually come at you with the question.
Yes. Bracing
Who's
myself.
making it the upper bracket juggernaut match?
Okay.
Place your fucking bets, ladies and gentlemen. It's solely bet time, but it's not, sadly. I'm sorry I baited you.
What games have we got left? That's going to, like, give me a second.
Oh, you're going to metagame
Okay,
this.
well,
That
I
makes
mean,
sense,
pretty much.
makes sense.
Okay, so in terms of like the people in the top pack, like the Hawks have had a bot. So basically, it's between who has the 2 games already played in this pack. Hawks have played Sangoku, so they're not part of that. V3 even head-to-head versus DFM. That's an important one. DFM same on the other side of that. CJ have played Burning Core twice. So Hawks and Crest Gaming Act have to play everyone else in this top upper envelope. Axes have played Rascal Jester and got the 1-1. That's very fucking important. Everyone else in the bracket they got to play against, and the same Rascal Jester. So basically, CJ and the Hawks have to play everyone else in the bracket. DFM, V3, Axis, Rascal Jester have 1 less game against one of these contenders, so they'll have another game versus the bottom table packs. Probably gives them a +1 in that opinion.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's going to be the Jesters and DFM that make it, with Axis just behind. Reasoning being, I think Jesters have the slight edge with the game advantage compared to a lot of teams that are close to them. I think DFM have got a decent schedule, actually, generally speaking. They've got a couple tough ones in the fact there's Axis, there's CGA, there's Rascal Jesters. Those are good teams, those are strong teams, but they're also your direct competitors, which gives you a lot of power over those standings. You've also then got some slightly less crazy games in the fact that your last week is, you've got the Hawks, you've got Burning Core you've got Sengoku, and you've also got the Hawks, who, Hawks have been on the upward trend, but, I still think they're probably a little bit further down the power rankings as yet. So for me, I think that's potentially going to give them the edge. And I will put Axis just that slight step below. I could well be proved wrong, and I'm hoping I am, purely because there's been a couple wins here which have had to go to the super late game, and I think the further through the summer split particularly you go, the cleaner teams get at closing out, and that makes relying on going to the super late game very risky. And I think particularly post the break, that's going to be slightly less viable, but I will still contend that Hoglet and Honey are damn good and should be expected to be dangerous at whatever point in the game.
I completely agree with you. Rascal Jester and Detonation Focus Me are probably going to be the two teams making the Juggernaut match, in my opinion as well. Similar reason, what you said about Rascal Jester. They've got basically 6 games left, and they've already got a 2-0. I'm already counting it as the 2-0 against Sengoku and Burning Core. That's great. They already have a win over everybody else. They're getting a 2-0. Freaking sick. All right, now and then you're basically looking at it and going, all right, can you pick up 2 more wins? And then you're probably a lock at that point, just through everybody else is playing. So I'm going to go there. And DFM, I just expect them to just pop off. So
there's a world where Rascal Jester get tie broke out of the upper bracket by Axes. A realistic one.
Which would be fucked, but I'd love it.
Oh, it'd be fantastic. I would imagine DFM get first.
Yes. Oh, I agree. I think they will beat Rascal Jester.
Particularly now that they've got the 2 games versus Burning Core and Sengoku left as well. Like, they should probably pub stomp them. Yep. So you're looking at them probably beating most of the other teams in the bracket. Of course, there is a chance they drop a random game to... CGA are actually...
They could drop a game to Axis.
CGA's bogey team has always been DFM because their lanes are just not strong enough to contend with them, so I don't think that CGA will be able to take a game off of them. Axis DFM could be hilarious, and that could be a tiebreak scenario too.
One, yeah.
Hilariously, that's the first game we even see of Super Week.
V3, I think, actually, again, potentially could have taken a game off DFM, but they're obviously have already played them the 2 times. Yeah, so I think DFM you probably shoe into first, particularly because they're playing Burning Core and Sengoku. I reckon we've got a tiebreak for second. I reckon we've got a tiebreak for second.
I mean, look, there's already a tiebreak for second. Like, it's very difficult not to get a tiebreak for second at this point.
Yes, I don't know who's on the SQ1 account, but the Axis League is wonderful. We love our narwhals here. They were in spring 2020. They were kind of our favorite team because they had they sucked in the early split, and then they actually played some really intelligent League of Legends to make a Cinderella story to make it into playoffs. So I reckon we tie break between Rascal Jester Axis for second place.
All I'm saying is there's a world where Axis get to go to Worlds and Unicorns of Love from the CIS end up in the same region. We have the Unicorns of the Land versus the Unicorns of the Sea, and it will be a glorious matchup for the ages.
I don't know. I can't. No, I've got DFM. My heart's already been carved. I can't do that. No.
Not like this.
We didn't do all of this MSI work to then go, actually, though, Axis, though, have you met these guys? Bunch of rookies. They've got these really good Korean players that you don't know. And then everyone be like,
so the best team you've never heard about.
I mean, that sounds like a Jibei99 video that he actually did for Sengoku Gaming.
Seriously? I didn't realize that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Like the year before we started covering it, he actually covered Sengoku and was like, they're one of the best teams you've never heard of, and that was because Pyrian and Blank were on, and he was like, I found this, and it was a very interesting video on his Jibei100 channel. Okay, so we're pretty much all agreeing that probably it's going to be Rascal Jester DFM. There is a chance though that someone like Axis could be a blue shell and cause some head-to-head difficulties for one of these two teams.
Some fun stuff at least.
This is one of the most interesting. This is the time where I've truly believed that all of the upper bracket could actually make it into the top 2. I haven't felt that before. Even in we've normally had a clear top 3, right? At the end of spring 2020, we had DFM clear first, then we had V3 Sengoku, and then the rest of it was kind of all about place. In some way, again, we kind of had 3 teams, right? We had V3, and we had Sengoku CJ, and DFM made a playoffs run, right? But they weren't pushing for top 3. Spring, kind of a similar story. It was like DFM and Rascal Jester. And then, okay, maybe that's slightly larger, but like we've never had.
And V3.
We've never had like the full 6 top teams being like, yeah, I can see it well. Actually, we've never had that.
Yeah,
before.
it's always been like top 4 maybe, but like because even in spring like we had 4 top teams.
Only top team for LJL. Only top team.
But we've never seen 2 teams go 1-7 before, so I mean that's why we're allowed.
Yeah,
that's what's allowed this amazing circumstance.
It's setting up to be a really spicy last few weeks.
Oh, it absolutely is. But we must continue moving on, gentlemen, and this is actually one of my favorite parts. It is to our dun 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 players of the week that we brought back because I want to do players of the week again. And these guys said, "Okay, Alex, let's just do it." And I'm like, "Yeah." Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what is players of the week? Myself, Initia1ise and Nymaera. We were going to do it for last week, but then we didn't have all 3 of us. So and it went very long actually that episode.
I can't remember what I typed out, so I'm gonna have to copy it. Where's my notepad?
Well, enjoy it because I'm doing this from the seat of my pants. We're doing our week 4 players of the week. Apologies, it's a little bit delayed, but hey, we wanted all of us to be here to give our reasons and points because it kind of doesn't work if we don't do that. Nymaera, coming over to you, even though you don't know who you've put.
I'm checking.
You want to change it?
No, I've seen it. I know what it is. Are we going to top laners first, perchance?
Top laners first, Nymaera. Who's your player of the week?
Top laner for the week is Nap. Honestly, the game which they ended up winning versus Axes, and well, no, both of the games, of course, were on the Gwen, so that takes some. You have to kind of take the power of the pick into account, but oh my god, was Nap top diff in some of those late game team fights. Like this is not the first time we've seen him pick up a new champion, like the Wukong he did in summer 2020, and just blast the league with it. He's done that with the Gwen. Guy's a real force in late game.
I have also gone for Nap. He's an absolute machine, and for all the reasons that you said, yes. Initia1ise, who have you gone for?
I too, I believe, have gone for the man, the myth.
Wow, Ebby with the steel chair.
No, let me. I can't make it stop. How do I unblock it? Somebody unblock it for me.
There you go.
I'm trying to get a window capture going at the same time so we can show people what's going on, and I'm trying to do too many things at once, and it's horrifying. Somebody help me.
So we've all just gone Nap. So Nap is the overall week 4 MVP player of the week in the top department. Initia1ise.
Yes.
Who is your jungler of the week?
He will be. Hang on. Must do window captures at the same time as talking. My person is Tussle.
Interesting.
I was wondering about that actually.
Had a phenomenal week 4.
I have gone with Steel. I disagree with you, sir.
No,
I
that's
believe
reasonable. He was the
Steel.
other person I was debating between. I thought he always had a very
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And for myself, I debated both of them. I went for Steel as well. So I was literally just checking which one I was. I saw it. I put down Steel. I'm like, all right, let's just consider Tussle again.
Boom.
No, still Steel for me. Still.
There you go.
Minority rule. So what's your reason for giving Tussle player of the week?
So, the big one is I think he absolutely was the main facilitator alongside his support for Hawks looking so damn good in week 4. He destroyed particularly Muujin, who got to do nothing on the Viego because of how well Tussle played that game. And even versus Sengoku, again, yes, it's a slightly easier opponent, but it was another one of those games where he was a huge part of the early game, getting things rolling, making sure the Gwen never happened, Crash never got off the ground, really facilitated the likes of Dasher on the Akali in that game getting going. Just really strong game, really strong week, and particularly versus Muujin, who I expected to kind of potentially drop him out of the water. Not even close. Muujin got to do nothing that game.
Yeah, it was pretty sad to see.
And everything you said for Tussle, I think you can apply a lot of it over to Steel in a very similar aspect. I mean, I would give an honorable mention over to Kassin. His Lee Sin was
True.
really
Oh,
important with some of
actually,
those ticks
Cassin had a
against
really good
Axis.
fucking week,
He did.
actually.
He
Yeah.
did.
And his
Fuga done
his Zinzao was like the reason that Burning Core got dumpstered as hard as they did, and Nation didn't die, because guess what? Kassin was literally the bodyguard. He was like, "No, Mr. President," but it was Twisted Fates. So yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm very happy with all of what we've said so far. Mid laners. That's what.
That's my
comes
job.
next, gentlemen.
That's my role.
Mid, yes. Resident mid laner, what is your mid?
What is your wisdom? My wisdom is that Arya's back and he's playing his champions again. He's playing LeBlanc. And oh my god, is he good at them? So I get to vote for Arya.
Crazy.
I'm actually not sure if I voted for him before in Players of the Week so far. He's been so fucking good this split though. Again,
Yeah.
particularly this one, like having Deathless LeBlanc games against Lysandra and all this other stuff. He just makes people look so lesser in the mid lane in some ways, because you just sat there and like, he farms well, he skirmishes well, he's never in danger, always a ridiculous damage output. Guys, just across the board, such a threat.
I, too, have also gone for Arya. Honorable mention over to Dasha, but honestly, Arya is just...
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, Arya is just good. Initialize, who have you gone for?
I also have gone for Arya, who is just
Unanimous!
been incredibly strong.
Yes.
Like, man has destroyed kids this week. It was basically, you know, like the amount of damage, particularly versus Sengoku, this guy did on LeBlanc was probably a war crime in a few countries. Like, it was just nasty stuff. Yeah, just really good. I think he and Steel had a phenomenal week. The LeBlanc plus Shaco combo is really, really strong. I think Gang as well had a really good time setting up with the Shaco as well, particularly in game 1. Yeah, just great stuff from there.
14, 20. He had a 27 KD
Right.
this week.
I mean, there's only one man that I know that beat them with that across a whole season, and that's Boogie. But like, Boogie was Boogie in the LJL.
I think he's lost one LeBlanc game, and it was versus Dasher, I think, back in 2019. He's like 11-1 at this point. It's ridiculous.
So good.
It's pretty sick.
I'm going to announce who my bot lane MVP was. I went, surprise, surprise, for Honey.
wow.
Not like we've been singing his praises all episode long. Initialize, who did you go for?
What a surprise! First verse, or second verse, same as the first. Honey was just insane.
Yeah.
Nymaera?
That
Any...
look at this point, like most other roles I could have an honorable mention to. I was considering Steel, or I was considering Cassid, or I was considering Tussle. Top lane Nap. I was like, oh, but actually Ebby had a good time. Appaman had some good moments too. Not like player of the week worthy, but like, oh my god, Honey was just so fucking good this week. Like, I mean, like I said, I mean, the fact that I think I look at some of the other players and they played strong champions in good positions, right? Where they could kind of like, you understand that their champion is able to do that. I didn't think a Jinx could team fight in the way that Honey could do against a team the caliber of Rascal Jester. And he just does it. He just pulls it off. And even in their loss with playing the Ezreal, he was
trying.
he was really trying. He's just achieving things which no other LJL player can do at the moment, in a way which, I mean,
very,
obviously,
very
like, Arya was that for 2020 for me, and maybe Art and Spring, but God, this guy's good in AD carry.
Yeah, really, really is.
Lastly, we must go to the support role. Gentlemen, who am I going to go for this one? Initialize.
Let's-
Who is your support of the week?
I went with Corporal, who I thought alongside Tussle made all the difference for the Hawks this week. That pairing did so much work and it was such an improvement, but the Volley Bear plus Rakan combo on the engages being so decisive, so aggressive, particularly around kind of second Drake periods of the game was phenomenal. Really, really, really good. And I just thought, yeah, of the pairings I wanted to put in there, I really wanted to shout out the Hawks jungle support this week. Brilliant stuff.
I, too, have also gone for Corporal. For very similar reasons. His Rakan truly enabled the Hawks like we've never seen before. But who have you gone for, Nymaera?
If we're going with this style of voice, we
Yes.
welcome ourselves to a blue rift. And it's Nemo's rift in the support for me. Corporal had a really good week, and I considered that. Like, actually, this is the one player I changed. I saw Corporal, I'm like, oh, but Nemo's hooks.
Yeah,
was
I know.
so
Nemo was another one I was thinking
good.
today too. Yeah, he was
But
very,
like
very good
in the Rascal Jesters game, it wasn't just Honey. Like in the fight where he pops off and he goes like, even then it's 4 for 3. Reason it's not a 5 for Rose because the hook lands onto the Varus, like in the middle of a clump. Do you know what that is to do? He just threads the needle, and the way he's been doing, you know, like his fake out hooks, like he's moving one way, hooks the other way, like the one into Shinzao in the mid lane. Like the guy is a walking freaking highlight reel this week. And yeah, I mean the Leona game was
rougher.
less strong, but even then, did have some good pick off moments. But that Thresh game was absurdly good. I mean, I will give it over to Corporal for overall, right? I mean, I'm happy to do that. I mean, Corporal was incredible on the Rakan in both games, and I think he was a pivotal reason why Ace couldn't do anything on the LeBlanc in the V3 game. But I just wanted to shout out to Nemo because I know that in the tier list we rated him pretty highly too. But yeah, guys are real talent. I'm looking forward to see how they develop. So Axes, don't get rid of this guy. Keep him on. I want to see how he gets on.
And that brings us to our final overall MVP player of the week.
Oh, whoops.
Well, one of us doesn't even put a player in there, so I mean,
Oops, no one saw that. I didn't transition
Initia1ise,
over to
is
show the
you
standings either,
my-
so it's fine. No one actually saw.
Okay. Initia1ise, who have you gone for your player of the week?
I think I may have jinxed it, and I mean that with all puns intended, because Honey was absolutely absurd this week.
Yep.
Nymaera, who have you gone for?
I mean, yeah, like Honey's just way too good. The guy's incredible. And yes, you know, there is like the you know, like I said, like Nemo was definitely performing alongside them, and Hogler was a consideration too. But Honey is very much kind of coming into their own. Like after just a year and a half of playing, you know, back in that spring 2020, struggled to find their form. They've absolutely found it in spades this split.
And that makes 3. We all agree. It's what a surprise. Of course, yeah, Honey is the greatest player of week 4, and I think you'd be pretty hard pushed to justify a reason of picking someone over him just of what the performance that he had. And this is a
Maybe
player
Aria, I guess, had a
we are
yeah.
He really did, but like Honey went 1-1 and we're singing his praises this hard.
Yeah.
That's special.
Dude,
That is
unreal.
But gentlemen, we have now reached Curse. We have done our players of the week. We have done the topics and everything else, but we didn't do something last week, Initialize, so we must complete it now, and that is your questions, ladies and gentlemen. If you are in the Twitch chat live right now, you can ask your questions in there, or if you want to be even better than the rest, you can go over, join our Discord, and love our lovely community.
Links below the
links
stream.
always below. We have a few questions to already start going through. So while people get those into us, let's begin off. Quincy asked us way back when, but this is why we ask. If you post your questions, we will come around to it. It just might take us a little bit. Quincy asked us, if Utapon was assigned to another region after this split, which region do you think he would perform best in and why? So not where do we think he'll go, where would he go and do well in, which is pretty unique.
I'll add to. I think he would probably do best in LCK, where I actually think the kind of the culture shock wouldn't be quite as strong. You know, he already knows who the players. I think he's generally pretty well regarded. He works very hard. Veterancy will help there as well, but LCK doesn't import. outside of that, I actually think he could go to NA and show some of those kids a thing or two.
I think he needs more of a framework. I think he needs a team. Like, it needs to be a specific team in NA.
Yeah.
Like, I think if it was... I mean, you're not going to get on Cloud9, right?
But yeah,
like...
he would do well there.
Yeah.
I think if they had a similar situation to what TSM has at the moment for with 3 players all speaking Mandarin, so what, Spicker lost... and I've actually forgotten the name of the very expensive support player that actually...
Sword Art.
Sword Art.
Yeah.
So Sword Art, all 3 of them all speak Mandarin. Obviously, Sword Art is obviously, but Lost and Spicker both speak it. Huni apparently knows a bunch because he's just played forever. So it was only PoE, and in game apparently they go, yeah, they just talk. If there was that kind of thing in NA, like a few Japanese speakers, I think maybe it would work. But without the communication, it's going to be a struggle, right?
I actually wonder on the right LPL team if he could really thrive. Because
I think he's
he
pretty
had...
good.
I mean, remember in the All-Star match, LJL actually beat LPL last year, and
Oh, yeah,
Initia1ise had a
true.
really good set of games. I think that... I mean, obviously, like, LJL is kind of LCK light, but he's also really good at just brawling and continuing to keep himself relevant. You never see Initia1ise become irrelevant in the way that
Very hard to take.
some
him out.
LPL AD carries kind of just, like, randomly into it, right? Looking at you, IG, sadly.
They make my heart hurt, unfortunately, that team.
Yeah, but, like... I think it would be incredible to see how high he could reach in the LPL or something like that, because I know it's got incredible bot lanes. The question is, like, you know, like, obviously, where would he do best and where do you think he would do, you know, all that other stuff. I mean, I think it would be harder to do well in the LPL because the bot lanes are, you know, subbing in one player against those monsters over there is something else. I think the LCK is easier for his style of play. In terms of like what he's experienced in DFM, but as a player, I think I'd love to see him on a choice LPL team if they'd be willing to buy him up.
I think he'll be best on a PCS team.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not a major region, which is why I kind of feel it as a little bit of a cop-out answer, personally. But I think he would probably do okay. I don't know. Well, I think it's difficult because the language barrier, and it's been made aware that he definitely has been given offers. He's just declined them in the past. So
yeah, I mean that's often true of a lot of sort of Japanese people in general. Like they quite like staying in Japan. Like international travel's a bit of a weird one because a lot of people aren't as confident in things like English. So it's partly why if they do go abroad, it's to places like Hawaii, for example, where there is a big native Japanese population that does speak Japanese. They're a little less confident going places where they have to kind of speak in English to somebody else whose first language isn't English either. And, you know, again, I stereotype a little here, but that has often been a trope.
moving on to our next question, brought to us by a fellow caster of ours, Melvin Izzle, comes in. Quick disclaimer on this question. I'm not too sure how I feel about disclaimers, but whatever. Disclaimer. Based on current form and disregarding the obvious prestige/experience gap, what does Honey need to do to supplant? I am struggling with that word for some reason.
Supplant
Initia1ise as the LJL ADC king, and in which areas do they already rival? Some general areas: champion versatility, laning, maximizing income, maximizing DPS, weak/strong side execution, team fight positioning, etc., etc.
He'll need to do it for more than one split. He'll need to do it in playoffs, and I think the other thing is, like, I need to see him do it on things that are not Jinx big time.
Yeah, champion versatility.
Yeah.
Because we've been impressed by his Kai'Sa at points, his Tristana at points, his Jinx at points, his Ezreal at points, which are actually, that's not a bad champion pool, but, like, Initia1ise is... I'm going to say this straight up. Initia1ise is the most consistent player in League of Legends history at the top level of the game.
Yes, I
So
actually don't think of a player.
So he has played on DFM since Season 3. He has been internationally performing since that time. He has the longest tenure on a starting roster for that time. And so the problem with that is obviously you're not an LCK player, you're not an LPL player, not in the top regions of the world. But, like, to keep that form and be, you know, like, at the same time, like, Japan's best Valorant player an Overwatch player, and like
Be
Legend
a
and
multi-role talent. I
Hearthstone,
have succeeded not just in
and
any
like
character, but
played
the role.
every role in competitive play
Like,
besides
some
mid
mid lane,
lane.
like, it's
What is this
dumb.
guy on?
Yeah, because your partner in crime has always been with you.
Yeah,
like
it's Saros,
he
yeah.
mains it, right? And like, and I
They're
think I
streaming
love
right
this.
now, by the way. They're on a
yeah.
Dioku adventure right now, apparently.
Like
Yes, they
Initia1ise is incredible. The guy's incredible. I mean, yeah, I think
yeah.
The
that,
fact that he was a professional Overwatch player at the same time as a professional League of Legends player, like
Oh, I
literally
think that was
playing
just the
in
ranked
both.
queue. I think that was
No,
the
no, no,
ranked-
no, no. He
Oh, shit,
actually
really?
played. Yeah, yeah.
I actually didn't
What?
realize.
Yeah, no, yeah. Supposedly he played some actual game, like professional games.
ridiculous.
It's
I
like
actually never realized that.
Like this
Yeah.
guy is like actually just kind of smurfing
Yeah.
like how good he is as a player. And I completely agree. Honey needs to put in some time before I'm ever
Like-
gonna be like, yeah.
And specifically for this split, like, don't get me wrong, there are some insane stats. The guy's got a 7.1 KDA, 10.4 CS per minute, which is even better. The GPM's at 473, goal percentage really high, 81% kill participation, nearly 82%. Like, that's fantastic. But then you look over at the champions, and you go, okay, 4 wins on Jinx, amazing. 13.4 KDA, undefeated on the champion this split. He is then 1 and 3 on every other champion. Like
Yeah.
he's got a loss on Kai'Sa, loss on Varus, loss on Ezreal, and a win on Aphelios in there. None of which have got anywhere near the same stats. And like that's my other concern. Like, look, you are a insane Jinx player, and we know you can do that. The Ezreal game this week as well was actually pretty good, and we know like the raw stats in terms of, like, look, you can lane pretty well, but the fact that you are potentially targetable in saying, okay, the Jinx is at this level, can you bring other things to at least being close to that? Still yet to be shown, honestly, in my books.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting question. That good one. Good one.
Follow up
Matt.
one. Question. In your years of experience, how/when has Utapon most impressed you?
I think in actually spring 2020 finals, when like actually Yutori Miyashi had been so consistent in his own right, the most consistent player in that split, and like he just gets dumpstered by Utapon in the finals. I'm like, what the hell? We built up this whole narrative of like Yutori Miyashi being the contender to Utapon. And it's like, no, it's really not actually that close. So there are moments like that, and then again in summer when like Archie kind of supplanted him for the best AD carry in that split. Again, like in the playoffs, like Utapon was crazy. I mean, that's for the times that we've cast them. It's hard to pick out a singular time for this player because he's been playing for so long, and the fact that he's been so high level throughout the entirety of their tenure, that's what really stands out to me. It's not one time; it's saying that he can do that over 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add in that you were kind of here. Well, you weren't here for spring, but if you go back and watch the Juggernaut match of DFM versus Rascal Jesters, and watch the Ezreal performances
that game,
from both of those guys. Nuts. The fact that it basically forces Rascal Jesters to first round the Ezreal, to which then Utapon had the counter. Like, yeah, there's been just some moments you go, okay, he and Gang are just, or he and Kazu in that case, is just really good. And, the fact the guy was still being disgustingly good despite having a coach as his support is kind of a bit silly as well. I probably have to go back and look over some earlier splits and to give you a more holistic point of view. But yes, the guy is good.
Yeah, I know 2018 summer was a very good time for
yeah, it
Utapon.
was. That's true. It was.
But I mean, Utapon and Syros, Utapon especially, is one of those few players that random casting talent. When you go, oh, I follow the LJL, they'll be like, oh, I know Utapon, and it's like, what? Well, of course you do, but at the same time, what do you know about him? Because you don't want to tarnish their impression or like kind of change their perspective on the player, because you want to know what they know first, because they might have a story to tell about Utapon, and it's just like he's been doing this stuff for so long. I don't know. Yeah, crazy.
Moving on.
TSD Stardust asks, do you guys have plans to have guest casters on during future broadcasts of this split and the next? So we've already had some guest casters on, so you've clearly missed some of our coverage, Stardust. But yes, we will potentially have talent.
It's always situational.
Like, yeah, it's very much situational.
Not
we
saying
try
we will or
and
we won't.
yeah, exactly, and we try and keep it with our core group before we try and look for external talent. But the talent we've had on has been very, very fantastic.
100 plus them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. With a follow-up question of, also, which teams from the VCS do you think you guys can beat the LJL?
so I'm glad
I'm
this
sorry,
split.
the VCS haven't played yet.
Aye.
I honestly, like, until I see them play,
I have no idea.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, I haven't seen them international for so long. I haven't seen the VCS really play now for so long. I don't know. Do you guys have an idea?
I mean, like, actually, with the current meta of playing a hyper early game and DFM like playing comfort through that, I think that works against the VCS if all the other teams are doing that too, because that's where they normally say like when people are trying to scale, they smash you early and close out the game. If you're kind of like buffing up your early games, kind of just in terms of the meta, I'm like for instance, like if you've got like Shaco LeBlanc, kind of coming in from DFM or something like that, then that's like, So, Craig Charles sadly is not going to be on next week's broadcast.
Yeah, Craig Charles is on. How did you know? How did you find out?
So what,
Tell me
so
your sources.
the word of your question was like beat the LJL. I mean, is that beating the top team or beating the league? Because I think most VCS teams are above the level of the LJL. I think that if you look at DFM, I think you're maybe looking at. I mean, I think your top three have a good chance, right? Because I think the VCS as a region is just better practiced and higher level. Top teams. So then you're basically asking, if you're looking at, well, that's the problem. What are our top teams? Like you look at the CGA, anyone can beat them. CJ can also beat anyone randomly. Axis, Rascal Jester.
I think this would be a great question to be asked again closer to the end of the split or after playoffs.
Yeah, okay.
VCS.
So
It's getting a little
Yeah,
bit
God.
sad, unfortunately, at the
I
moment.
think if you've got like even like you've got players that can like solo blast through games, like Coated from Luxury, Gum can do whatever they want. Hazmet and Froggy have been played really well in the last split. DNK, Slater if he's on form. Like I don't know how they're playing right now in the current meta, so it's obviously very hard to tell. I don't really know if we want to spend too much time on this because there's too little information. I think DFM, I think you're looking at top teams to contend. Rest of that, sure, whatever. Maybe other top teams.
I now need to go and watch some Robot Wars so I can figure out my best Craig Charles impersonation to make for like a playoff series when I'm hosting.
We're in the background of a lot of that from when we were about
the old
like
Robot
9.
Wars were in the crowd footage.
Really?
They reused the crowd shot of me and Al looking on in horror and alarm multiple
Very
times.
envious. I watched many a recorded cassette tape of that, or just
you've
a
been
tape
consumed
over
by the
and
void
over.
as well. The cameras. The moment we start speaking of ceasing,
Cease.
Indeed.
Hey, hi.
MaskedSwan
Chimo
is cancelled camera.
asked us, resident
What have you asked us, Chimo?
like coordinator and admin and just kind of sorter of things. He asked us, with regards to if Hawks win over DFM, do Hawks go to Worlds? So, assuming they beat DFM, do Hawks go to Worlds? No, because they don't beat a best of 5.
No, and like you're still having to go through multiple best of 5s. That's the problem with any of these top teams. The only team I can see taking multiple best of 5s is Rascal Jester. Like I think that they could. I don't think. Yes, if you double click on the source, then it'll have a thing at the bottom of it saying refresh
I'm doing it now.
There you go, good shot.
It was just being weird. I did refresh it a couple times. It just didn't
the
work.
whole time I've been staring at myself. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't know what's the problem.
For whatever reason, it just
Yeah.
decided
So
to
no,
send you
I
to
don't.
void on my end.
It would have to be an incredible like this. It's like that's the 1% going to Worlds actually. Like that. Like I don't. Obviously, we haven't seen what they've done in the off break, but it's pretty.
I would rather take the bet Axis make Worlds than Hawks make Worlds.
Yeah.
I'm
And
just
even
gonna
then, it's like a 5% chance that it's a 5% chance that Axis make it for me.
Like if they do go, if they do go, it'll be on the back of
incredible gameplay.
Yeah, Corporal and Tussle continuing to step up, particularly in the early game, and Dasher just being really good.
Yeah. And Melvin, to end us out, asks us, which LJL team benefits the most from having an academy team? I love this question because we talk academy, so I'm very happy about this one. And
start off on this one, actually.
I will actually, yes, I will start us off. So I've got kind of two mindsets here. The team which we know just has, well, okay, there's 3 teams I think this benefits the most. DFM, they already have a foundation. They already have a
Yep.
system. There's a very good chance that Siros is going to be leading
Practice
that
in-house.
team as well. They've already got potentially some of the best players. We know Ari is already good at communicating ideas around games. He was doing that with Ace at Worlds, so we know that there's a lot of stuff that these players already can do. I think DFM would be a great one. My other two teams are probably going to be coming a little bit left field. But it makes sense. V3 is the first one. Why?
Sure.
They were looking for academy players back in spring. They were very keen to get this ball rolling, and it's kind of why I started thinking, oh, academy's going to be a thing. But they also have a school infrastructure. They have multiple colleges and universities which kind of feed into the team. There's clearly money around there. There's a lot of talent that has been shown. So I actually think V3 Esports will benefit huge. Also, they've got UGO. So that's good. They have got Unica, so we'll have to deal with that one again. But UGO's there. My other team, and I think this is a very obvious one, is SoftBank Hawks. They have the money to throw around more than anybody else, and Hawks are definitely the team which could benefit from just having more people. I feel like in general, just kind of being like, hey, let's just really flesh out this infrastructure, and something like getting an academy team particularly early on into your organization starting is going to be very beneficial for the long-term trajectory, because it will just become a very known quantity. It will be part of the infrastructure very early on. I think DFM can do that, and I think V3 have the ability to host that. The other teams I think could be fine, but they're kind of my three main teams I'm hopeful for.
I think, yeah, I think that DFM, like, the question is it helping the play? Is it the best for the academy team or best for the main team? I think for the main team, obviously, like, DFM being able to practice with high-level players in an in-house is very important.
We know they do that.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and I think that would help the practice regimen and stuff like that. I think that the team probably... I think I look at CGA because they've got... Yeah, I think CGA and DFM are the ones which immediately spring to mind.
Mm-hmm. Why
I think you've
CGA?
mainly covered it, so I mean, I'm not going to go too much further on that, so yeah.
Why CGA though? I'm interested. Why CGA?
Because they've always picked up rookies. They need better ways to practice their early game plans, because their early plans are not good, and I think that in-houses and having academy teams can help with that. I think that it gives the ability to have a struggling player like Alchemy or Milan and like take them out for a week, put them into a different atmosphere, maybe try out some different rosters and stuff like that. Because I mean, even in 2020, CJ had like the problem with their junglers. I think there's a problem potentially. Yeah, I think that there's obviously Milan has had some really good moments, had some really bad ones too. At least having that extra ammunition to move some parts around, I think could help CJ in particular.
What about you, Initialize?
I think most of those make sense to me. I think CGA is a good one in terms of like the players you've got. People like Milan kind of went from zero to hero straight out of solo queue into this. That's always difficult. And I wonder whether a little bit more competitive cooking time might have made the transition a little bit easier. Milan's been getting better. He genuinely, we're starting to see some of the raw talent shine through a bit more consistently now. But you know, spring was a bit rough. Still got some laning woes, and a bit more time cooking in academy might do him some good. I think also just teams who I think have got the infrastructure or the money in place to make the most out of it. So people like DFM and the Hawks come to mind on that front. Maybe even Axis, right, if they've always been kind of scouting for rookie players on it anyway, then having more rookies to work between, especially if they have often been a little bit budget, might work. But I think you've covered most of the important ones, generally speaking.
Yeah, Axis are definitely an interesting one. I'd want to see their roster before I'd make any conscious thoughts more than anything, because I'd be like, how budget will they go? is a genuine concern I have for going into academy. But I really do hope that we have full Japanese teams more than anything else to try and foster the homegrown talent. I really don't want to see just us importing random Korean solo queue talent and stuff just into the LJL. I'd really like to keep it just Japanese, but hey, we'll have to see how that all pans out. We know that that's already happened in the LOC, even though everything else. And Yeah, I mean, it went boom, and yet there's still Korean players playing there and imported. So who knows where that will go? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually at the end of this episode of the podcast, season 2, episode 25 of this beautiful, glorious podcast. Yeah. As well, with that being said, gentlemen, I'm coming over to you first, Initialize. Anything else you'd like to close out? Anything you'd like to plug? And let the people know what you're going to be doing over this next week until we next see our lovely faces.
I am going to be hitting those casual vibes. Might be on NLC again. We'll find out.
Check his Twitter.
Let you guys know as soon as I know, which maybe later this week we'll find out. Which will be cool stuff. That's the big one. Aside from that, not huge amounts, which is quite nice.
Anything on Jinx?
It depends if there are articles to be written, possibly.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Nymaera? Anything you'd like to plug, hype up, or anything else for this week coming?
Next week, I don't know. Like, I've basically been through all of my backlog now, and like I've got my uni work out of the way, finally. And yeah, I guess speaking about university, obviously I did this like the big European university tournament again, and like I'm at a bit of a crossroads now because now I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing with that. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next year because, of course, Sam and I have both been on UKLC, on NLC. So so I guess in terms of plugging things, like, please, I hope that you enjoy my content and continue to support me in whatever ways you can do, because that's meant a lot to me. I think regardless of what's happening with where I'm casting, I'm always going to have a soft spot for the LJL, and I'm loving what we're doing this split. I think that we've got a really good look, and I'm really enjoying it. And this will always be the place which I started my casting and forged my skills. So it's very important to me that we, give the courage to this region that it really deserves, honestly. So in terms of plugging things, I mean, I'm sure I'll be doing LJL content ad infinitum at this point. It's just whether things allow it to be so. As long as I'm able to, I shall. But yeah, I potentially NLC stuff again. I mean, I got to cast with the Scoundrel for the first time the other day, and that was really cool. Of course, he's made his post about getting into a new job and doing less casting in the UK scene, which is potentially very, very cool for him, and also potentially very cool for us if he's moving on and berths open at that level too. So yeah, keep an eye out on my Twitter, keep an eye out for the LJL stuff too, because of course I'm loving the work that we're doing here, and thank you very much for supporting us.
I almost want to end the podcast there, but I'm going to plug my own stuff first. I am going to be grinding Final Fantasy XIV like no tomorrow. I have got my relic weapon to collect, so I have got that to be getting on with. Obviously, Super Week is upon us, so this is one of the most stressful times for us three at the LJLOU because 16 games. And we have pretty much since, outside of our first spring of covering this, we have kept to, this will be our third one in a row where we're going to get 8 games done in a day, and then we're going to just get it all out onto the YouTube, and then we're just like, and we do the next day, and we almost forget about day 5 in a weird, somber way, and then we recap it all on the podcast so quickly afterwards. So I'm just like, hey, just pay attention to LJL. And if you're one of those people that's starting to get revved up and getting excited for LJL because you're like, hey, now all the games have actually happened, I can actually start picking up the narrative lines, you're coming at a good time. Exactly. If you're one of those buggers that are going to come in at the end of playoffs, hi, thank you for watching and supporting us. I still appreciate it.
We still love you.
We still love you. But with that all said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening and or watching, and we'll see you all very, very soon.
Watcha.